Today I'd like to point out some errors that good old doubting John Loftus made in his blog, assessing the minimal facts approach of Habermas, Lacona, and Craig. One of the first things that John takes issue with is, what are these so-called agreed upon facts? That 1. Jesus died by crucifixion. 2. His disciples believed that he arose and appeared to them. 3. The church persecuted Paul was suddenly converted. 4. James, the brother of Jesus, who was a former skeptic, converted. And that 5. The tomb of Jesus was empty. John then goes on to say that the first thing to note is that not everyone agrees with all of these facts. Muslims, over 1 billion of them, along with skeptics such as Robert Price, disagree with the first one. Well, so what, John? The minimal facts approach is built on what the majority of scholars concede. What John rejects to mention to his readers is that 95 to 100% of scholars concede 4 of the 5 facts. John then goes on to argue that the empty tomb has a number of scholars on both sides that doubt it, including liberal Christian scholars, something that Habermas and Lacona admit, and yet they include it anyways, thus portraying this as not a minimal facts approach at all. They feel justified to include it because Habermas discovers roughly 75% of scholars on the subject accept the empty tomb as a fact. So what? This is just an argument based on consensus that includes many evangelical tomb writers on the subject because they are more interested in it than others. Did Habermas include Muslim scholars in this survey? Well, I have to say that this is somewhat dishonest. John says it's roughly 75% and then says it's because evangelicals, but this is misleading. Dr. Habermas records 1,400 scholars, both skeptics and non-skeptics alike, making up to 75%. Then John goes on to say, well, what about Muslim scholars? All of them reject the resurrection. Oh, come on, John. This is not a historical rejection because of evidence, but a theological one, and Muslim scholar Shabel Ali admitted this in his debate with William Lane Craig, saying that he starts from the Quran and sees what it allows. John then goes on to argue that, first and foremost, the New Testament is so riddled with discrepancies and evolving layers of religious tradition coming from a superstitious air that it leaves a great room for doubt. Well, John, I must say that this is somewhat shocking to me, that an ex-Christian apologist and a man with 3 master's degrees in the philosophy of religion would say this. Why? Because John knows, or should know, that this is bogus, and that the Gospels are not needed to make this case. Dr. Michael Lacona makes this point all the time. We go to 1 Corinthians 15:3. Why is this important? Because this is a creed that has the 5 facts in it and checks in at about 55 AD, and with the crucifixion dated at approximately 30 AD, this is just 25 years, and this is a letter written by Paul to the Corinthians and is not part of the Gospels. Dr. Habermas puts it like this. In ancient historiography, this is incredible. In a time when the best-known biographer of Alexander the Great is that of Plutarch, almost 400 years after Plutarch. And when we learn about the early Caesars from Tacitus to Suetonius, we have a good 100-year gap. 25 is incredible. 25 years is way too early for John's so-called evolving layers of religious tradition. Sorry, John. Back to the drawing board.